Okay, we are now recording. We're going to write a payroll program. And what we would like you to do every time you write a program is indicate your name as well as the name of the program at the top of the file. And what we're basically going to do here is determine the weekly payroll. So in order to do that, let's write the pseudocode. Pseudocode is just ordinary plain English in which you describe the steps required to perform the task that the program is intended to cover. So in this case, we want to work out your weekly pay, assuming that you're paid on an hourly rate, not salary. And we want to work out your weekly pay. So if we were to break that problem down into a series of steps, what are some of the steps that are required? What would be maybe a good first step? Anybody?
Could be like your hourly rate, or if you're paid.
Okay. All right. Get the hourly pay rate. Very good. Get the hourly pay rate. I'm even going to choose a variable name. You don't really have to do that, but I'm going to say, let's assign that to a variable called rate. And by the way, I would like to make this an interactive program where we get our input from the keyboard. We're going to ask the user to enter the values so that we have a really useful program that'll run differently every time. So we want to get the hourly pay rate. What else would we need to know in order to calculate the pay for a week? Anybody?
How many hours a week?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Get hours worked. Assign to X. No, you might do that in math class, all right, algebra class, but don't do that in a program. Call it what it is. Self-document. You're self-documenting your code if you use variable names that describe what you're storing in those variables. Okay, now what do we do? What's our next step? Anyone?
Yeah, we'll just multiply them together to get gross pay.
Very good. So we could say, there's various ways you can say this, but we could say assign rate times hours to pay. That should be okay. And then I suppose there's no point in doing any of this unless we display the pay, right? So I think that's our final step. So we'll display the pay or print the pay. So that's the pseudocode that just came to mind to me, but you could write pseudocode that uses different words. As long as you have those steps covered, it's good pseudocode. Your pseudocode is good if it leads you to the Python code, which we're going to write now. Okay, so that's the whole test of it and the purpose of writing your pseudocode. You're planning the program when you write the pseudocode. You're breaking the problem down into a series of steps in the right order. Okay, you have to make sure you do those in the right order, although it isn't always necessary to, in this particular case, we could ask for the hours worked before the hourly pay rate, but we definitely couldn't work out the pay until we knew what the hours and the rate were, right? So we definitely have to make sure we get our pseudocode ordered properly. Okay, so let's say that's good for the pseudocode. Now, I don't recall if we did this the other day or not, but I would like to start using the main function to run our programs. It's the only thing I don't like about this textbook. The author doesn't start using the main function until about chapter 4 or 5. I would like to start using that a little bit earlier than that, in fact, right now, just to get you used to the concept of your programs starting in the main function, because that is, in fact, what you're going to run into if you take C or C++, or if you take Java. Those languages do use the main function, although they might call it a method, for example, in Java. But I'm going to start now then with def main, open and close parentheses, colon. Okay, def main. Def means define. We're going to be defining the main function here. The name of the function is main. And then you open and close parentheses. Functions always have parentheses. And then a colon, not a semicolon, a colon, and press enter. Now watch what happens. Watch where my cursor goes. Notice it's indented. That's how Python determines what's going to be inside this main function. It's by the indentation. Some other programming languages use braces, curly braces, to indicate where a code block starts and finishes. But in Python, it's done with indentation, which is actually easier once you get used to the idea. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start translating the pseudocode into Python code. We want to get the hourly pay rate and assign it to a rate. Now, the other day, we did talk about data types a little bit. What are the primary data types that we're going to be using? We've got strings. The string data type is for non-numeric data, right? Non-numeric character data, names, addresses, occupations, things like that would be string data types. But in the numeric range, we have 2 data types in Python, and we want one here that has decimal places in it, that handles numbers with decimals, because obviously an hourly pay rate being currency is going to have some decimal places in it. So does anybody recall what data type that is? What do we call it?
Right?
Float, that's right, float type. Okay, so we want a float type here. And we said in our pseudocode there, we said we're going to use rate as the variable name. So we go with rate. And then in order to enter a float, we have to use 2 functions. We have to use the input function and the float function. So we have to use float. And then inside that, we embed the input function. And in that, we're going to enter a prompt string. Enter the hourly pay rate or rate of pay. There's lots of ways you could do this that are equally correct. What you should do, though, in your prompt string is you'd always finish it with a space and then close the parentheses. Now, I'm just going to close that again. Watch the reverse video effect. When I type that, see, it only closed the inner set of parentheses. I need another one to close the first parenthesis. So if you open 2 parentheses, you have to close 2. And that is what we need to do in order to get the user to type in a value for the pay rate. It will then be assigned to this variable here. So that's a really important concept. What's going on with this line here? This line here is going to display this on the screen. And then you'll see a cursor right after it. And that's an indicator that the user is supposed to do something, enter something. And when you do enter something, when this line executes, it will be assigned to this variable here. Remember, the equal sign is your assignment indicator. So I think that handles the first statement in our pseudocode. And I'd just like to refer to the cheat sheet for a minute, which we sent to you in your email. If you haven't checked it, check your email from Tuesday night, I believe it was, and you'll see I sent you a message about a cheat sheet, and attached to it is this document right here. I just want to show you something. Right here is what we just covered. We just covered how to store keyboard endpoint of a floating point number to a float variable. It's on page 51 and 53 in chapter 2. Okay, so that's why I think this is a really useful document for you to download and keep handy throughout the course, because you might forget how to do something. You can look back here and check it out. So next thing in our pseudocode, we want to enter the hours worked and assign that to hours. Well, you don't necessarily work a whole number of hours. It could be that you work 32.5 hours, right? You should get credit for that if that's the case. So I think this could also be a float, right? This should also be a float. So we go with our float function, our input function, and then we put a prompt string here, which would be enter the hours worked. Once again, we finish it with a single space, 2 closing parentheses. Okay, so I think that covers these 2 lines in our pseudocode. Now we need to look at the 3rd line, which is assign rate times hours to pay. Notice how my indentation is staying consistent here. That's important. If the indentation is not consistent, your program will probably crash. So watch when I press enter at the end of this line. Notice where the cursor went right to the right place. By the way, if I forget to close one of these parentheses, watch where my cursor goes when I press enter. Watch closely. See, it's not where it should be. It's halfway down the previous line. That's a little indicator. Whoops, I didn't finish this statement here properly. So watch out for that. That's a good little trick to know. So what we want now, we want to look at that 3rd statement in our pseudocode. We want to say pay equals rate times hours. And of course, for multiplication, we use an asterisk. Okay, one more to do. We're going to display the pay, and that's where we use our workhorse statement for output, the print statement. So let's go with print. And we could do this in a number of different ways. We'll start off by doing it in a simple way. Something like your pay, about your pay is, and I'll type a $sign here, close my string, and then I'll use the pay variable here. You can have multiple items inside of the parentheses of a print statement. It's very common to do that. You can have multiple items. You can separate them with a comma. As we'll see, we can also separate them with a plus sign. You'll see that in the future. But I think this is pretty much ready to go here, except for one thing. All we're doing here is defining the statements that are going to execute when we run the main function. But there's nothing in this program right now that's going to run that main function. So what I have to do is right up against the left margin here, I have to type in main, open and close parentheses. That will run the main function. In fact, I'm going to put a comment right there. You can sprinkle comments in your programs at the end of the line, as well as before or in between lines. So I'm going to say here, the comment is run the main function, because that's what that's doing. And if you don't do that, when you run your program, you get nothing, which I forget sometimes to put main in here, and you run the program, and you just get an empty screen pretty much. So I think we're ready to go here. Now, you'll notice at the top, always check the file name up here. This is not yet named. It's still untitled. But when I go to run it, I'll be prompted to save it. So I'm going to run it now. F5 function key will do that as well. There's my prompt to save it. And I'm going to save it on my D drive. And I'm going to call it payroll. I don't add the .py though. If you add .py, your program will be called payroll.py.py because idle adds the .py for you. So I'm just going to save it now. And just take a look at my drive D here. Just want to show you. Yeah, see there it is there, payroll.py. Now, there's the first statement running. That's the first line of our code. And as you can see, it does do what input will always do. Input will display the prompt string, whatever you specified inside input, and then you get that flashing cursor. Okay, so let's see. We'll try as a first example, maybe 1850 per hour. And maybe I worked the full week, say 40 hours. Pay would be $7.40. Okay, that's not bad. It looks like it's done the math right. I think that's the correct product of those two numbers. Did that work for you, folks? I hope that worked for you. Now, if it didn't work for you, you might have got the red screen of death, which it means that the program might have crashed. And if that's the case, just look at every single line here, every single character. It's extremely important that you understand that every single character in your program is important. Okay, you have to, one of the skills of a good programmer is attention to detail. Details matter. So you really got to pay attention to detail. So if that didn't work for you, I can help you out. If you wanted, you could speak up and explain what the problem was. I suppose you could put it in the chat. I don't have the chat open. I'll open up the chat here. No questions in the chat. So I'm assuming you're okay with this. But let's make it better. There's a few things that I don't like about this. First of all, I should be showing 2 decimal places here for currency, right? And the other thing is there shouldn't really be a space here. Well, that's the way Python works when you use commas. If you use a comma separator in your output, as I've got right here, there's the comma between the 2 print items, right? I'm printing a string and a variable. And if you use a comma, Guido intentionally made it so that a space is automatically inserted in the output. This space is inserted by that comma. Well, we don't want that. And the best way to handle this is by using F strings, F string. Once again, I'm going to go back to our cheat sheet document just for a moment to show you. There's quite a bit of content in here about F strings. As you can see, from 70 to 78 is all about F strings. And I've broken it down into the individual skills in page references there so that you could quickly do a lookup if necessary. So let's try using an F string to fix this. We'll make this just a little bit better. In fact, what I'll do is I'll comment out this line. And I can do that by just putting a pound sign in front of the line. Python will ignore it now. This line will not be executed when we run the program. So what we'll do is we'll modify it with a better print statement. And that would go something like this if we're using an F string. F strings work like this. You start with print, F, and then you start your string. And then inside the string, you use curly braces to create what are called space placeholders. So we could do something like this. Your pay is $. And now here's a placeholder. Open and close a curly brace. And then inside that curly brace, you put the name of the variable that you want to display at that location in the output. Well, in our case, that's the pay variable. So I'll put that in there. And then you close your string, and then you close your parentheses. So let's see, this should give us a little bit better output. So I'm going to run this again. This time I'll just press the F5 function key. I'll be prompted to save it again. I'll just press enter. Okay, I'll try the same numbers just so we can compare. Okay, it's a bit better. I got rid of the space, right? I totally got rid of the space. The $sign is up against the first digit in the amount of currency, and that's the way we should always display our currency in this course. But it's not showing 2 decimal places. Well, there's more you can do with an F string. In this case, we're displaying a floating point number with, and we would like to display 2 decimal places. Well, here's what you have to do to make it better. After the variable that you want to put in the print, type a colon, and then you can follow that with a formatting content, point to F. Point to F means 2 decimal places as a floating point number, which of course is what we would want for currency. So name of the variable, colon, point to F inside the placeholder, inside the curly braces. Let's run it again. Run it one more time. Should be better output this time. And once again, I'll try the same numbers again. Much better now, much better. Now it's pretty good output. Is everybody okay with how that works? Did that work for you? You got to do it exactly like this. Okay. Name of the variable that you want to format, colon, .2 means 2 decimal places, and it is a floating point number, so you need to put an F in here. Okay with that? It work for you?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, let's make it even better. Why don't we make it a little bit more detailed? Why don't we try another print? We'll make this another F string, just to dig a little deeper into F strings. What we could do is we could say the number of hours worked. Why don't we put the number of hours in a placeholder? So curly braces, put the hours variable in here, and I'll just use AT as, and we could put the pay rate in here as well. So I'm going to put another placeholder inside my string, and we'll use proper variable for the pay rate, which is rate. And maybe what I could do is say pay is $. A lot of different ways we could do this, I think, that are acceptable. And then we want the very same thing that we have here. So maybe I'll just copy it. Good programmers are lazy, by the way. They don't reinvent the wheel. Larry Wall, the guy who made the Perl programming language, one of my early favorites, was he says that's one of the attributes of a good programmer, laziness. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you've already figured it out, reuse it. So let's see. This isn't going to be entirely accurate, I don't think, but let's see what it runs like. Now, I suppose I could comment this line out now so that it doesn't execute. So put a comment in front of that. Let's try running it again. Here we go. All right, let's change it a little bit. We're Durham College, or pardon me, we're St. Petersburg College graduates now, and we're starting off at $38.75 an hour, and we're working 40 hours again. Okay, I guess I need to fix this up a little bit, but it looks like it's sort of working. It is giving me the variables at the locations that I was hoping for. It showed me the hours, and it does show me the pay rate and the pay, but we can make it better. We could actually put a $sign here, right? Could put a $sign here, and if I was concerned about this rate not showing 2 decimal places, I probably should format it with 2 decimals as well, just like we did the pay. So I think I will. I'll put a comma, or pardon me, colon, 0.2F here as well. And I think I need the word hours here after the 40 in the output to actually display the word hours in my output, because I didn't get that here. I just got 40 hours. So we'll insert hours. And maybe we want to display the decimals on the hours too. But let's do that as well. Why don't we display the decimal places on the hours though? Maybe with 1 decimal place, just for a little bit of variety. Why don't we display that with 1 decimal place? So that would be 0.1F. So let's give that a try. Basically what we're doing is making the program better. And by the way, that's kind of the way programming goes. You write your program, first draft won't be exactly what your customer wants, so you have to keep working on it. So I'm going to try, once again, we'll be, maybe we got a raise, we're now making $42.50, and we worked 40 hours again. I like it much better. It looks pretty good. It's starting to look pretty good now. There's one more little feature I would like to add though, and that is, I'd like to add the feature of what we do here in North America. We typically would display a comma right there in the output, wouldn't we? For any number that's over 1,000, we would typically put a comma there in our output. Well, we can do that with F strings as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right there before the period, okay? Comma dot 2F means display it with 2 decimal places, but if it's over 1,000, put commas in where appropriate. So with that change there, I think we've got a pretty good program now. So I'm going to run it one more time. And we'll look at our output here. Window's getting pretty busy. You know what? I'm going to kill that window off. Getting a little too busy for my liking. We can always kill the output window. It doesn't matter. Every time we run the program, it'll open up in a new output or interactive window. So this time I'll try, well, we got yet another raise. We're doing such a good job. We're making 44.25 and but we only worked 32 hours. Maybe we worked 32 and a half hours. Remember, that was a floating point number as well. So let's see what we got there. 32.5 hours. Yeah, notice we got only the 1 decimal place because that's what I put here as the specifier. And 44.25 looks good. We got the $sign in front of that. And here's our comma. So I would say this is pretty good output now. I think we've pretty much put this one away. Now, of course, there is another thing to consider when you're working out your pay, and that is the concept of overtime at time and a half for any hours above 40. But that's where the next chapter comes in. In the next chapter, we'll learn how to make decisions in our program. But I want to make sure that everybody's okay with this one here. Did this work for you? If it didn't, ask a question. Do you understand how it's working? That's always your objective in our classes, by the way. Your objective is to try to understand why the programs we write run the way they do. And it's the same thing that you should consider when you're reading the textbook. The textbook has sample programs. You want to try those and you want to make sure you understand why they run the way they do. That's how you can learn how to become a programmer. And then try making a couple little changes. See if you can modify the program and see if what came to mind works for you. That is another great thing to do when you're learning how to program. Well, I don't know about you folks, but I got a little buzz out of this program. I just got a little kick out of it. It's kind of cool. We just made a program right from scratch and it seems to work okay. It doesn't consider overtime, but we'll do that in the very near future. You'll notice how we started off with the pseudocode where we planned the program. And then after writing the pseudocode, we translated the pseudocode into the Python code. And that's the purpose of the pseudocode. We could put some more comments in the program. I suppose that would be a good thing to do. Like, for example, right here, I could say, get user inputs. It's kind of obvious, I guess, but that's what's going on at that point in the program. And then right here, I suppose I could say, do the math. It's always a good idea to document your programs. And then before this line here, I suppose I could say, display output or display the results or generate output or something like that. But we'll put some sort of a comment in here. I guess we now know that we don't need these lines anymore, so I'll just get rid of those. So I think we've now got a pretty decent total program here. Any question about that one? Just want to make sure I save it with those changes. Are we okay with that one, folks?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Kind of cool how F strings work, right? You got total control over every single character in the output. There's more to learn about F strings, and we will take a look at that. In fact, I've got a sample program that I'm going to show you. I believe I got it on my drive D here. It's already done, so I'm just going to open it up. Got a couple sample programs, but the first one is the one I wanted to share with you. Take a look at this one. We're going to demonstrate how you can do alignment with F strings. F strings will also allow you to left align, center, or right align in columns so that you can generate tables. Very often in a computer program, you'll want to generate tables of data. Like you might want to get it, well, in this particular case, we're actually going to display square roots and cube roots by using the exponentiation operator, the double asterisk. This will become very important when we do chapter 4, where we will be generating tables of output. But take a look at this program here. I'm going to start off with n having a value of 64. So I'm not even prompting the user for the input. We're just hard coding it. And then we're going to work out the square root of n by using double asterisk. That's how you do powers. And some of you may recall from mathematics that the 1/2 power is the same thing as the square root in mathematics. Similarly, the 1/3 power is cube root. So if I want to get the cube root, I can do that like this. There is a function in math in Python that allows you to do this in another way, but it's a good way to review use of this operator, the exponentiation operator. So we're creating three variables here, as you can see. Now we're going to output 3 lines. The first line, well, actually in the first column, we're going to get 3 columns of output here. And we're going to see that the n value is going to be left aligned with 2 decimal places in a 10-character wide column. The square root is going to be centered with 5 decimal places in a 12-character wide column. And the cube root is going to be right aligned with 5 decimals in a 12-character line column. So I'm just going to give this a run here. And I can send this to you all as well, which I will do in just a moment. But I'm going to give it a run. Here it goes. There's the output. So we can get it all on the screen at the same time here. Yeah, see what the right here, that does. We're going to format the n variable, and to left align it, you use this symbol. Notice it's pointing to the left, isn't it? Right? It's pointing to the left. It is a less than symbol as well in mathematics and also in Python, but it's pointing to the left. This 10 means it's going to be a 10-character wide column, and the 0.2f, it's like we did with the currency. That means we're going to have 2 decimal places. So if you take a look here, that is what we got from each of our lines. Now, actually, all 3 of these statements are exactly the same. I just copied them. Right, I wrote the first one and then copy pasted the next 2. So it's the same output in all, but you can see why we might want to do this. You can get nicely formatted output with the decimal places all underneath each other, which is what we got here very nicely. Here's how you center. Shift 6 on your keyboard. It's above the 6, right? I believe that's called a caret. Some people call it a caret. Where I came from, we ate carrots. We call these carets. But anyway, that's the symbol, Shift 6, to do centering. If you want to do right alignment, you use the greater than sign, or you point to the right. And once again, it's a 12-character wide field with 5 decimal places. Now I put the pipe symbols in here just to show the edges of the columns. But I think if you check, you'll see that these are in fact exactly as indicated. Like I'm going to put my cursor right here, and I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly 10 characters wide. This one should be 12, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exactly right. So you have total control of every single space in your output with F strings. If you want to do left alignment to make nice columns of output, you can do that by using this symbol. If you want to center, it's this one. If you want right alignment, it's this one. But remember, you always have to specify what variable you want to work on. then follow that with a colon. Then you indicate the alignment. Then you indicate the column width if you wish, and then you indicate the display of decimal places. And you have to do it in that order or it's going to malfunction. But actually all of what we just did there, we pretty much covered everything in here about F strings. I think I pretty much covered all of these. The last thing that I mentioned here about the order, getting things in the right order, that's what's on page 78 here. Page 78 shows you the order that you have to specify. They call them the designators inside the placeholders. You have to get those in the right order or things won't work properly. Does that work okay for you? Okay. All right. Outstanding. Just wanted to show you something in the interactive window. And got room to do that right here. Lots of room under this window. Remember, I can mess around right here and generate some output. And I would like to try something here. I'm going to try num equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And obviously we've got a lot of decimal places there. What I'd like to do is, I'm sorry, let me send you this file first. Let me send you this file, which I believe I can do in the chat. So I'll try that right now. Okay, you should have it in their chat. You should be able to get that out of the chat window and get it onto your system. Oh, I sent you the payroll program. I want to send you the other one as well, the F-string program. So let me get it back on screen. And I'll send that one to you as well. Okay, we've got the F-string program now as well. Alrighty. Now I just wanted to, I'll shut this one down now, but I did want to play around a little bit in the output window here, just to try a few things with this number num that we've typed in. So we've stored that in memory. We can verify that if we just type in num. When you're in this interactive mode, you don't actually have to use the print statement to see the value that's in a variable, which is kind of a nice feature. I certainly could print num if I wanted to in this interactive window, but you can do it without using the print statement as well for variables that are stored. But what I would like to do is let's try something with an F string with that. And I don't even need to use print in order to do that. I just need to start with F. Now I want to challenge you. Can you format that variable num? Type the number in yourself as well in a interactive window, just like I did. Num equals 1, 2, 3, 4.56, 7, 8, 9. And then what I'd like you to do is use an F string to format it with 3 decimal places with a comma for the thousands. It is over 1,000, as you can see. So can you format that num variable showing a comma for thousands with 3 decimal places? Take a shot at it. You might not get it right the first time. Try again. And nothing else. We just simply want to output the variable num. No text. We could add text, but just the variable. So my video keeps freezing up on me. But I am. I am here live. So did anybody get it? What do we need to do here? What is absolutely required regardless of how we want to format it?
The curly braces.
Exactly. We've got to have the placeholder braces. Exactly. Got to have the curly braces. I suppose I could close the string here now too. Now, what's got to go inside here?
The variable num
Exactly. Outstanding.
with a colon, then a comma, period, 3.
And an F, right? For floating. Very good. I think that should do it. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. But I want you to notice something else. Notice it converted it into a string. Notice we've got apostrophes on both ends. So when you're formatting a number, it actually gets converted into a string. In fact, all input and output in a program is actually uses strings. So what you want to format, then a colon. If you want to get a comma for thousands, that should be the next thing. And then your number of decimal places, we wanted 3 decimal places, so decimal 3F. Okay, very good. All righty then. That work for you folks? I hope so. We could even try a larger number. I'll just change the value of num. You can, by the way, you can edit these, you can repeat these lines simply by cursor arrow up to the line and pressing enter. It'll repeat the line and then you can modify it here. So what I'll do is I will try to modify this a little bit. I'll make it, I'm going to add 3 zeros just for the heck of it. Let's see what happens if I put 3 zeros in there and press enter and then try my format F string again. Yep, it did the right thing. And notice it gave me another comma here, which is what I was hoping to display. So it looks like it's working okay. Total control. And you'll notice I didn't use the print function at all. I could have. In fact, I'll just demonstrate that. I'll add the print function instead of just using the F string alone. And of course, you have to use the print function if you're writing a program, if you're not in the interactive window like we are. And now you'll notice it doesn't have the apostrophes. So it does output it as a number, not with the apostrophes indicating that it's a string. Okay, so you can mess around in this interactive window and test a lot of things in Python. And we encourage you to do so. And I will be doing it often in this course. But when you write the program, it's a little bit of a different matter. Okay, let's try something else. Let's say that you're a salesperson. Go write another program. Once again, the only way to get good at programming is by writing programs. The more, the better. So if you're okay with that, I'm going to carry on, and we'll write another program. I'm going to fire up a new idle window, and we'll try writing yet another program. Let's write a little program. Let's imagine that you're a salesperson. Okay, so let's say, why don't we call this one sales.py, and maybe you're selling cars. Okay, you're a car salesman, and you want to determine your commission. You want to see how much you're going to get paid by selling so many cars, and you're paid on a commission basis. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just put my name in, and you should do the same. Put your name in there. And I'm going to try something a little bit different here. I'm going to use triple strings to state the problem, just so we don't have to try to remember what I vocalize when I state the problem. So I'm going to use triple strings, and I'm going to write the problem here. So here we go. Calculate your commission, you're paid on commission for selling. And when I press enter, notice I pressed enter and it tabbed really nicely for me. For selling 2 vehicles. If you are paid a flat rate of maybe $400 a week plus 2% commission on weekly sales. And I'm going to finish that by going out to the margin and typing my closing triple string. It's kind of a neat the way triple strings work. It's an alternative to using a bunch of pound signs at the start of each line. And you'll see this from time to time. Unfortunately, it's not in our textbook, but if you go online and look at other courses elsewhere, you might see triple strings being used like this. So I wanted to show it to you because it's kind of cool. It's a good way to put a bunch of text in a program. In this case, I'm describing what we want this program to do. So let's write the pseudocode, see if we could solve this one. Okay, that should be the next step. So we'll write the pseudocode. I suppose we could put the pseudocode in triple quotes, but I won't. We'll just go with ordinary comments for the pseudocode. Okay, so next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce the concept of a constant. That's something that we do cover in this chapter. If I go back to our cheat sheet document, it's actually the last thing in the chapter, except for some discussion of turtle, but it's at the very last of the chapter on pages 80 and 81, using constants. Constants are just what they sound like, numbers that don't change. If you've taken chemistry, you'd probably know all about Avogadro's number, right? 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. You might, if you've taken electricity, you might know that an ampere is 6.24 times 10 to the 18th electrons per second. That's a coulomb per second. Anyway, it's a constant number. So what we want to do is define a constant here in this program, because I think we need one. We do need a constant because we've got the flat rate of $400. You know you're going to get $400 regardless of what happens, right? Because being a salesperson can be tough, right? If you have a bad week, you want to be able to eat. So that's why all salesmen are generally paid a flat rate. So let's assign 400 to a constant. And here's the thing. When you name a constant, and this is true in almost all programming languages that I can think of, constants are always named in uppercase. If there's more than one word in the name of the constant, you use underscores to separate them. So what we could say here, why don't we call this flat rate? Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to do in our program. All uppercase, and I've got an underscore between the two words. We would like you to do the same thing when you create a constant. If you don't, I'm probably not going to give you full points on your assignment. I'll ask you to redo it. Okay, so all uppercase. Next thing we want to do is, now this is a little bit unusual. I'm not going to use a loop here. We're just going to do this really basically by asking for the input of the selling price of 2 vehicles. So what we could say here is get selling price of vehicle number 1. Various ways we could say this. And what we could do is we could call that price 1 maybe. How about that, price 1? And this next line is going to be very similar, so I think I'll just copy that last line and paste it in there. And of course, this would be number 2, vehicle number 2. Hope you get the idea here of what we're doing. Right? Those are the inputs that we'd have to have. And now, now we have to work out the pay. Okay, so now we have to work out the pay. So we're going to calculate the pay. I suppose, you know what? I think we've got another constant here. That 2% is another constant, isn't it? Yeah, that 2% is another constant. So I think maybe we should assign that as well. And it is customary to assign them at the start of a program. So I'm going to do that up here. Assign, we'll do it as a decimal, 0.02 to, what do we call that one? Com rate. 0.02 to another constant called com rate. And now we'll calculate the pay. And of course, that's going to be the sum of the commission plus the flat rate. Maybe we should calculate the commission part only. I think maybe we should. Let's calculate the commission first, and then we'll calculate the total pay, because it is sort of a two-step thing. And we'll say calculate total pay as sum of flat rate. I guess we could use the constant name here. Flat rate plus com. No, I actually didn't choose a variable name here. Maybe I should assign to com. Now I'm being pretty finicky about my pseudocode here. I'm actually choosing variable names as I write the pseudocode. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I think it kind of helps because it helps you plan what you're doing. And so you choose names that are describing what you're holding in those variables. Okay, so we're going to calculate the total pay as the sum of the flat rate plus the commission. And then I guess we'll just print out the total pay. Maybe we could print the total pay out in two parts. Yeah, I guess we don't need to do that. Why don't we just say we'll print the pay, print the total pay. Okay, so there it is. Now let's write the program. Def main colon. And now we're going to translate that pseudocode into Python code. But I'm going to challenge you to take a shot at it for a few minutes yourself. Take a couple of minutes and see if you can write some of that code. Okay, take a couple of minutes and try it. I'm actually going to pause the recording for a moment, and we'll come back in, say, about... all right, Python coders. Anybody get this one? How do I want to start here? How do I want to start this program? Anybody?
Yeah, assigning the two constants to the variable names that you said.
Outstanding. Let's look at the first two lines up there. That's right. So you do that with just something like this, right? Flat rate equals 400. You could put a decimal in it. It doesn't really matter. We're going to format it later. And the com rate, all uppercase, underscored between the two words, 0.02. Okay. And then we want to get the selling price of vehicle number 1. So we're going to call it price 1, apparently. If we stick to our pseudocode, price 1 equals. Now, obviously the price of a vehicle could have decimal places in it, but maybe we could ignore that. Like generally speaking, if I buy a car, I'm thinking, you know, $25,000. I'm not thinking $25,000.79. So I'm going to try int on this one, just for some variation, because if we want to work with an integer, we can use the int function instead of the float function. It certainly wouldn't be wrong to use the float function though. So enter price of vehicle 1. And then a space at the end, very important. Otherwise, your input will jam up against the 1 there. And we want pretty much the same thing, except it's going to be price 2. So I'll copy that line, paste it in, and then modify it. The danger with copying lines is you might forget to update everything. You have to re-examine it. Best way to prevent programming errors, by the way, take a look at the line just before you press enter. I find that it really works for me. Just before I carry on now to the next line, I'm just going to quickly scan that line. It looks okay, so I can press enter. If you do that, you'll catch a lot of bugs. Okay, so I've got my 2 prices, and now I want to calculate the commission, and we're going to assign that to com. So the com is going to be, what's this going to have to be? Anybody? We need an expression here of some kind, mathematical expression. A couple of ways we could do it, I suppose. We could use parentheses and add the 2 prices together and then multiply that by the commission rate. But you don't have to do it that way, but I think that does make the most sense. So I'm going to go with com rate multiplied by the 2 prices, price 1 plus price 2. Now it would be okay to say com rate times price 1 plus com rate times price 2. That would be equally correct. Okay, so I think that should work out the commission. And now we want to calculate the total pay. Okay, so I think I'll actually call. I didn't actually choose a variable name for that, but what I'll do is I'll call that tote pay. I'll go with the normal way that you work with variables in Python, and I don't think I've stressed this at all. Variable names should be all lowercase. That's the Python way. If there's more than one word in the name of your variable, use underscores to separate the 2 words. That's the Python way. Okay, so you don't want to use uppercase. Uppercase characters have a special meaning in programming, and they don't apply here. So in this case, I'm going to go with tote pay equals, let's see. Yeah, it's going to be flat rate. Actually, I can just use the flat rate constant, right? Flat rate plus my com. Okay, that should handle it. So now let's output the total pay, and we'll output that using an F string. So that would be print F, open your string, and we could say your, various ways we could do this. We can make it really simple. Your pay is $. Now let's get the variable that we want to format here, which is our tote pay. Got to always choose that variable name. Got to make sure you're mindful that you don't change the variable name as you go along. Colon, could be over 1,000, so I'm going to put a comma in here, 0.2 F to show it as full currency. And then we close our string, and then we close our parentheses. So maybe that's got it. We'll see. I don't get my programs right the first time every time. I admit that quite freely. It's quite common. Everybody makes mistakes. The secret is, do you know what to do when you do make a mistake? Can you respond to the mistake? So let's see if we can give this one a run here. I've got it saved, so I'm just going to press the F5 function key. Okay, let's say the first vehicle I sold was 35,000. And the second vehicle was an upscale vehicle, $48,000. I guess my pay is $2,060. Now, what I would do if this were an assignment that I was submitting for grade points, I would definitely work this out on a calculator to just make sure that the math is right. Of course, I can do it right here because we can use this as a calculator, right? So we could obviously, if you add 35,000, 48,000, that's 83,000. So I should be able to do 83,000 times 0.02, 02 plus 400. Yeah, so we did get the right number, 2,060. So you want to always check that if you're doing an assignment, because you might have a logic error of some kind, right? So are you okay with that? Everybody okay with that one?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of an assignment. What you might want to think about doing now is you might want to think about going into Module 2 and digging into the pseudocode. It's the very first topic in Module 2. Let's see if I can display that for you here. I think I've got the course open. I guess I don't. But we'll try to open it up here. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, we are. Here's our course page. And I'm going to go to the course content. And I'm going to open up Module 2. That's what we're working on now. And I'm going to go into the assessments. If you notice inside Module 2, there's 2 submodules. In the assessments, the first assessment is a pseudocode. So you might want to try to do that before next week, okay, before our next class on Tuesday. Basically, what you got inside here, there's two problems that you have to write pseudocode for. But as well as posting your pseudocode, you have to then reply to the pseudocode postings of 2 of your classmates to get full points. Okay, so try to get that done before next class. That'll help a lot. Next class, I wouldn't say to go beyond that though in the assessments. Like the next assessment after that is a quiz. And then after that, there's a preparation assignments. But hang on, I'm not going to recommend that you do that at this point. Instead, I'd like to do more sample problems with you next week before we tackle that. Okay, we want to do some more sample problems. That's the great thing about your decision to take this course at 16 weeks. We have time to do lots of sample problems so that we get real good at problem solving, which is the hard part of programming. And we get really good at writing Python programs. So you might want to try that for next week. And by the way, just about cars, I thought you might find this interesting. Joe Girard just recently actually passed away in 2019. But he was for a long time, he was the world's greatest car salesman. I'm not sure if he still is. But look at his figures here. He sold 13,001 cars between 63 and 1978. In 1 year, he sold 1,425 cars. Unbelievable. 365 days in a year. He's almost selling, he's selling more than 4 cars a day. I mean, that's pretty impressive. How the heck did he do that? Incredible. So being a car salesman isn't a joke job if you're good at it. Okay. But it is a terrible, frustrating job because you have to nag people. Like, I'm sure you know that whenever you drive onto a car dealership, as soon as you enter the grounds, they're looking. There's somebody walking out to you right before you even park your car. That's why they got to hustle. They want to get that commission.
Yeah, Joe was probably getting to them while they were still in their cars.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that's all we're going to do for today. Any questions about anything we've done today? No? Alrighty. Well, have a great weekend. Be safe. Yes, go ahead.
Where do I access your recordings?
I'll send you an email. Yep, in my courses. So read your my
Okay.
courses email. It takes a little while for Zoom to process it. I won't be able to send it to you for probably a half an hour or so. Possibly
Okay.
more than that. Actually, I've got to prepare for another class that I've got this evening, so I might not even get to it until tonight, but we
It's
will
fine.
definitely send you an email. Yeah, everything is recorded and I'll send you emails.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, folks, before we call it a day? Okay, well, I hope you followed all that okay. Enjoy Python and have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Right.
You too.
Thank you.
That out.
Professor, could you also send me the video as well in my email? The recording.
You're not in my class?
Yeah, I am in your class.
Yeah, well, if you're in my class, you'll get the email.
Oh, everyone's got. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
I'll send it to everybody in the class, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I
All right,
also,
thank you.
there's a few people that aren't in my class that get my emails as well.
Oh, I see.
Okay, take care.